Tom? Jerry. Tom. Jerry. Tom?
Jerry.
Tom.
Jerry.
Tom.
Hi, team. How are you?
I'm good.
First of all, congratulations for the movie.
Thank you, man.
Before watching the movie, I was afraid that we are not going to be able to watch the spirit of Tom and Jerry because of all the allegations they had along for years, like they're too violent for kids and things like that. I think you managed to get halfway between not losing the spirit of them, but perhaps saving yourself a lot of troubles.
We always knew that was going to be a real tightrope to walk because we're just in a different world. And you know, the world, I guess when these movies were, the world has become, violence has become more public in terms of us seeing it and this and that. So we always wanted to be sure that although we were bringing these animated characters into a real world, we knew that the violence, even though we didn't want to go away from it, we just knew that at times it could get a little bit too much. And so we always were kind of, we were always watching out for that, but at the same time, we didn't let it limit us. But then we also knew that with music, with sound effects, with things like that, we could lessen the hit, you know, no pun intended, we could lessen the sting of it a little bit more. And we knew we wanted to have adults be able to, especially parents, be willing to let their kids sit down in front of this and have a good time. And so we always asked ourselves, is this too much? Sometime in post, we would we pull back when we thought it was too much. But what we found quickly is that you could have a lot of fun with this. You could let them hit each other with irons and, you know, bring chainsaws into it and all of these things, as long as you made sure the tone always remained lighter, you know. So I once again have to take my hat off to the actors who helped me with that tone and be sure that we never crossed the line of it being too for the most part evil or too harsh. But we also knew that in our animation we had to just to be sure that kids knew, as well as the adults know, that we're here to have a fun time and this is a party and none of this is malicious, but it is still Tom and Jerry.
I think I might have just pulled this off.
I read that you said there were two things that helped you with building this character. One was Bob Hoskins from Roger Rabbit. That's a very, very good movie. And the other one was your experience as Hit Girl. I'm a big fan of that too. So I would like to know what have you taken from both of those things and how you implement it in Tom and Jerry's?
Definitely. I grew up with Roger Rabbit most of my life. It was one of the stories I loved the most growing up, and particularly because of, you know, without him making Roger feel so real, you know, we wouldn't have been able to fall into that story and see it as a real cartoon rabbit in those moments. It was just absolutely brilliant how far he threw himself into it when he was acting opposite nothing and running around with nothing grabbing on his arm. And, you know, those are the magic of film and cinema that I love so much growing up. So I really wanted to pull that through into this story and to really, you know, not hold back on pushing the envelope and giving that physical comedy a try. And then that moves on to kind of where the physicality comes in, you know, doing Kick-Ass from a young age. Physicality in my acting became so important to me and integral to the way I go about my characters. And this is one that was particularly physically challenging. I think people underestimate the physical energy that goes into comedy, especially slapstick physical comedy. So I had to be, you know, at a 10 all day, every day in a hot, you know, sound studio with no air conditioning. So it was definitely a bit of a draining, physically draining experience, but so worth it and so fun.
This hotel has been host to 4 presidents, 3 popes, 2 kings, and we're about to host the wedding of the century.
Tom and Jerry are very, very big characters. Like, they're very famous. It's been 80 years, in fact, this year. So were you in a moment concerned of what the people would say?
Yeah, you're always concerned, right? Like, you think,
um, when you hear about a project like this, you actually hope that it's going to be as good as you think it is, and it was better, because they took the charm that you had, the Tom and Jerry had. You know what I mean? When I first, you look like you're too young for it, but when I first started watching Tom and Jerry, and they took that charm and then put it into the script, and they didn't deviate with the natural dynamic that we all loved so much, and so that was a huge plus. And so I was more than eager to do it. But to be honest, you had Tim Story, who I'm a huge fan of, and then you had Chloe Moretz, again, huge fan, super solid, great actor. And then you had a cool character, which I was excited to play. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. But there was so many reasons to say yes.
Tell me everything about the Batman reference.
Well, I just knew that there was this moment where Tom was going to be flying around, and that idea actually came up in post. And we knew that Tom was going to, there was this cartoon where Tom put on these, I believe it was actually a girdle or something like that, that he used as wings so he could fly around. And once he was flying around, I grew up, that was the first, Batman movie that I saw. And I just remember that moment. And since Warner Brothers, we were at the same studio as Warner Brothers, I thought, wouldn't it be really fun and silly, and hopefully fanboys would take take the wink and have some fun with this moment. And so one day I remember going to find that clip, got it to my visual effects artist and said, I want to do this. I want to recreate this moment. I'm just a big Batman fan. And anytime I could get that in there, I wanted to try for it.
That is a wanted, dead or alive, and your stick figure of a mouse, and your E's are backwards. That's never gonna work.
How was the process to get to understand the characters, so in that way you can act along with them?
Yeah, these are all, all the questions you just asked were all the questions I asked at the very beginning of the movie. My first question was, is this a world where cartoons are just always out and about? And, is this just a Tom and Jerry type thing, or are all animals cartoons? And the answer from Tim was that all animals are cartoons. The birds that fly over your head, the fish that land on your plates at dinner, everything's a cartoon. So that was surprising to me and exciting to understand that. And I think having that information, it allowed me to really go there with the characters. We had the animators on set the entire time. So constantly we were talking to the animators about what they needed or what they expected from a sequence. And really, my biggest question was, how far can I improv and how big is too big? And unanimously the answer was, it's never too much. The more you improv, the more you create is the further that they can animate. So it was an exciting experience to be able to be an actor and also a bit of a creator in what I made up the characters were doing opposite me. They were then able to animate that. So all of the moments in like the hotel room when I first meet Tom and he's spelling his name out in air balloons with his fingers, all that stuff was improv on my end. So I was having to make up this stuff, and then they were able to animate what Tom was doing towards me in that experience, which grew the scene by a couple pages. So, it was definitely a wild experience, but it really taught me to trust myself and trust my instincts and go for it.
He's toying with us.
How long it took to you to get used to it, to work with references, with balls, with humans dressed as like dogs?
Well, you get used to it really quickly because you get used to doing stuff with like a tennis ball. You know what I mean? Like it's nothing really. So when there's puppeteers there, and you're saying like, you should feel horrible about yourself, and then the puppet does this, it's great. It's almost sometimes better than a human in a way, because it's the exact reaction that you should have sometimes, as opposed to like, oh, sorry, are we doing something? And it was really good, man. I got used to it right away. And plus, when a human's acting like a dog and they're pulling you, you don't even have to act. You're just trying to, control them. And the person that was playing the dog, there's no way I could control that person. It was insane.
Let's talk about the twister scene. I guess that scene must be one of the most difficult scenes for you to act.
It was not easy. It was not easy. They have to put you in a contraption. You have to hang on it and you have to roll. And I kept on rolling, I guess I was top heavy. So if this was my head, I kept going, and they're like, let's pick him back up. And then they had to turn me around. And I had it really made you feel kind of sick. But then when you see it, it make you actually feel like you're in the thing. It was pretty cool. It was worth it.
He's just an innocent little mouse.
And last question, Tom or Jerry, and why?
I'm a Jerry fan. I just think Jerry has so much swag. He's so cool. He can kind of he can kind of manipulate any of his environments and kind of just fit in. And so I'm a little more Jerry. I will say that I think we all have a little Tom in us, a little, trying to do too much and mischief and all this other stuff. But Jerry is just he's just a cool character, and I like his whole demeanor.
Tom and Jerry are kind of, for me, it's like the parent and then the kid, because Tom, it seems like I don't know, just the parent. Like they're not like evil and mean, like they want to crush each other. They're sad when they're not around, which is kind of like the way you are when your parents aren't around.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, right on. Have a good one.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.